welcome once again to another edition of our Government at Work program, a program brought to you by the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration and hosted by yours truly. It's another wonderful Thursday evening here in the island of Nevis, and it's a time when we look forward to bringing you the information as it pertains to the continued developments taking place here on the island of Nevis. As we continue to move forward as a people, there are positive signs of growth taking place in all areas of the Nevis economy, and each week we are happy to focus on at least one of those areas to ensure that you are more aware of the positive strides that we are making in this beautiful island of ours. This program is broadcast live on BON Radio every Thursday evening from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Then we broadcast on Nevis Television on Sunday evenings from 8:30 p.m. If you are unable to listen to our live broadcast at any time, this program can be seen on YouTube shortly thereafter. I remind you at this time that our Bird's Eye View program continues to be aired on NTV every Tuesday evening from 7:15 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Then we broadcast on Wednesday evening at the same time. Additionally, I am pleased to inform you that our Bird's Eye View program can now be seen on Facebook. We shall take a short break, and when I return, I shall introduce my guest for this evening's program to you. So stay logged on to the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, BON Radio 860 AM.
So right, St. Thomas is right, St. James is put together and build your land. Right, St. George's and St. Paul's together with St. John's. This land is enough for all to share. No reason to leave and go nowhere. Foreigners can come here from America and England. There is something mighty sweet about my land. And if the foreigners who live here can insist that it's here they're from, then I swear I'll never leave my native land. One people, one country.
Welcome back. Folks, I am pleased to have as my guest this evening, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley. Honorable, good evening and welcome once again to our Government at Work program.
Good evening, Mr. Scarborough, and thank you for having me. As always, it's a pleasure and a delight to be here. As you know, I consider this part of my public duty, engaging when I can and as often as I can. I was here just last night for 2 hours and I'm back tonight, so I'm delighted to be here.
I'm happy to have you as well. Now, before we go into our discussion this evening, there is a question that I wanted to ask you, which has to do with the public service. I had the Permanent Secretary of Human Resources, Mr. Kevin Barrett, as my guest here last week, and we discussed at length the rules and regulation of the public service. And I must say that one can't help but feel like bad behavior. This system is set up to encourage bad behavior in the workplace. And I say that because the hands of those in authority are pretty much tied when it comes to disciplining an employee in the public service, regardless of their indisciplined behavior. There are quite a number of steps that has to be taken before one can be suspended, terminated, or even transferred to another department. My question to you, therefore, is how difficult it is for the NIA or the federal government, for that matter, to go into Parliament and pass a law that will make it much more easier for discipline to be meted out, especially to repeated offenders.
Well, it's not difficult. It comes down to the political will and whether or not at the federal or local level the intention is to try and change the rules. The reality is that St. Kitts and Nevis has operated under the civil service rules for quite a long time. And we have the same rules that apply in St. Kitts as they do in Nevis, even though the two public services are separate. So there is scope, I feel, for the Nevis Island Assembly to pass legislation or new regulations, and it is one of the things that needs to be looked at. There has to be some reform. It is unfortunate because the rules that are there were really put there to prevent people being treated arbitrarily, to provide some protection to public servants, especially as we know that politics being what it is, sometimes people can legitimately complain that they've been politically victimized. Unfortunately, what has happened is that some of the bad public servants have used the very law to abuse their position, not come to work, behave in a manner which is unacceptable, and as you say, the system has really ended up in some level of paralysis. Having said that, though, I think that the steps are there, the steps are clear. One of the problems we've experienced in Nevis is that a lot of people in supervisory positions are not willing to write up and to document the infractions of public servants. And many say, well, the island too small, I don't want no enemy, this kind of thing. But the reality is, if you're in a position, you're getting paid for that position, you are always ready to get your increment and get your scale, then do the job. And that has been the position. So it's a difficult situation. I think that we really have, across the board, a problem in terms of quality of employees and people's willingness to work. It's not a question of literacy or people being able to read and write or even people having a degree. It is rather, I think, the intangibles. I spoke to someone just today about employees, and the person said that they were a little disappointed because they were getting a lot of applications. They were getting people who on their CV looked very good. But she said, they would come in, and she said even in terms of applying a letter, an email, they don't address the email properly. They just start to write. So she said, well, are they refer to her by her first name? She said, but I don't know you. So simple things like those, professional things that I think we just need to have a reset, to look again at what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I think that the point you make is well made. The laws that were designed to provide some comfort and protection and to shield public servants from, I think, the whims of politicians, those laws are now being roundly abused by those few. And I want to emphasize that, because the majority of public servants, I think, are hard-working and do a good job.
Sure.
But they have those few bad apples.
And they use that as a loophole to do wrong things. Now, one more question I wanted to ask you before we go into our discussions. I understand that some of Nevis's road equipment and manpower is being used to assist in the building of roads over on St. Kitts. Is there any truth to that, firstly? And if so, could you shed some further light on that for us, please?
Yeah, it is true, Mr. Scarborough. We have lent to our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts some pieces of equipment and 7 of our technicians, who I believe will be over there for about 6 weeks, building out roads. So they're working on roads in St. Peter's. I saw some videos just today of the Prime Minister touring, and I believe that it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes, Mr. Scarborough, because not so long ago, let us remind Nevisians that when we had another leader in the Honorable Joseph Parry, he told these same fellas that they were not capable. He told them that they must go practice, learn how to drive, as his justification for giving all the work to foreigners, a foreign company that was here.
True.
We, when we got into office, took the opposite position. These fellas are as good as and better than most, give them the opportunity. And look at where we are now in 2024, where St. Kitts is reaching out to Nevis and saying, hey, could you lend us some of your expertise to help us with our road construction? That is just a sign, a signal to say to the people of Nevis how good the fellas in public works are. So not only that, but you will recall, because I like to talk about it, Mr. Scarborough, because I have come under a lot of pressure from St. Kitts, the former Prime Minister, and his echo chamber over here in the NRP, who have said time and time again how we squander money and we do all that kind of thing. We invested in a brand new paver. Yeah. We invested in a brand new milling machine. We invested in other equipment. That same brand new equipment is now what we have been able to lend to St. Kitts to help them with their road construction. So you ask yourself the question, if we were spending bad and wasting money, how come we have the assets now, the equipment brand new, that we can lend our support to our sister St. Kitts? You recall in the past, that couldn't happen.
True.
In the past, Nevis would be begging St. Kitts for some help.
True.
Here we are now sending manpower, sending equipment to St. Kitts and assisting them. And I feel proud of that. I think it says to our Kittitian brothers and sisters, listen, Nevis has come of age. Nevis has come of age. Nevis is no longer the little sister or the little brother. We are equal partners in development, and we can lend our support when necessary. But that support is possible, Mr. Scarborough, because of the investment that the NIA has made and because of the confidence that the NIA has placed in the Nevisian people.
True.
And I want to publicly commend Minister Spencer Brand and his entire team. He doesn't talk a lot, but he's doing an excellent job. And I want the people of Nevis to understand the dynamics, despite the chatter and the talk. I want Nevisians tonight to reflect that Nevis has gone over to build roads in St. Kitts.
Speaks volumes, visionary. Now, Honorable, the Independence 41 celebrations are here. Some has begun already. But unlike the 40th anniversary celebration, this one seems to be without much fanfare. I know that the 40th anniversary was seen as a major milestone, but I thought I would mention it. I want to give you the opportunity at this time, however, to highlight for those who are listening and viewing at this time some of the activities that are scheduled to take place as part of this year's anniversary celebration.
So first of all, let me say that it is perhaps expected that when you have a milestone celebration, it's different. As a married man, I'm pretty sure that your 10th and your 25th and your 50th wedding anniversary is going to be a little different to your 19th or your 16th anniversary. That's just the nature of things. Yep. So the 40th anniversary was a big deal, and I think that it's only natural for people to understand that the celebrations after 40 are probably going to be a little muted until you get to another big milestone, whether it's 45 or 50. That's just the nature of things. This year on Nevis, we are going to have, of course, the parade that's going to happen. That's on September 19th. We are having a major concert that's happening on Saturday, this Saturday. It's a free concert. It features artists like Mr. Killer, a major well-known soca artist, and it features Taurus Riley, well-known reggae artist. The concert is free, and so we're inviting everyone to come out. As we say, just come with your best behavior, and we're asking you to dress in national colors or bring your flag. The idea really is to provide something for everyone. We also have a number of local acts, St. Kitts and Nevis. The action starts at 8 p.m. We have been doing that concert now for quite some time. Last year, of course, we were bursting at the seams when we had Romain Virgo and Christopher Martin and others. This year, I think, equally, we have some major names in soca and in reggae, plus some major local acts. So we anticipate that people are going to come out in their numbers, including our brothers and sisters from St. Kitts. We're inviting everyone to be a part of that event. We have, I believe there's a cocktail ceremony as usual. The Deputy Governor General normally would have something for her guests. And then we have the Toast to the Nation. We have visits to schools. We're doing various things of that nature in and around. On St. Kitts, of course, you have a host of activities over there as well. I think they're having a gospel event. They're having, of course, the National Heroes Day event as usual. They too are having their parade, ceremonial parade. Last year, you would recall that we were able to do both because we did one at night and one in the morning, I think it was. This time around, we're not able to do that. But we are going to nevertheless press on and seek to ensure that we provide the necessary avenues and opportunities for our people to come out and to show their patriotism and to show their love of country. I believe, Mr. Scarborough, that to achieve 41 years of independence for a nation this small and to still not only be surviving, but I think in many respects to be thriving, I think it speaks wonders. And I want to pay kudos and commendation and credit to all of those who went before us. Those premiers that went before me, those prime ministers that went before Dr. Drew, and I believe all of them, whether we agreed with them or disagreed with them, all of them made a contribution. And so I pay homage and respect to them all.
Okay. Will there be any joint appearances with you and the Prime Minister, similar to that of last year, perhaps featuring at one or more of these activities, whether it be the parade or church service or some other event?
Well, the parades will be difficult because they're happening at the same time. And so certainly he is expected to be at the parade in St. Kitts, and I'm expected to be at the one in Nevis. So that will be difficult. The church services maybe, but we'll have to see how that goes. It depends on the schedules. We also at this time as well have a lot of diplomatic allies who are visiting. And that too puts added pressure because they always want to meet with the leader of the opposition. So I have a very tight schedule of meetings with foreign dignitaries and diplomats who are coming in. So that too is going to be part and parcel of what I have to deal with. So we will do what we can, but I believe that the people, these events are really designed for our people, and I'm hopeful that they go out and participate to the fullest possible.
Great. Now, there was much talk leading up to the 40th anniversary regarding possible constitutional reform in good faith, but we are yet to hear or see any movement in that direction. Are you seeing or hearing anything on the horizon?
I have not. It is, of course, not an initiative that the NIA can take. It is a national initiative and has to be taken at the national level. But I have not heard anything in recent times about constitutional reform. But I do feel 41 years on now, that it is time for us to take a fresh look at our constitution, to tighten up in some respects. I have said quite publicly that the situation that we encountered with a governor general who fired 6 elected members and somehow sanctioned a government of 3 individuals. In fact, when you look at it, you had 6 plus the 2 in opposition, 8 sitting outside the government and a government of 3. It was farcical. And, you know, for the Governor General to have been able to claim that he relied on the Constitution for that, despite the advice that we took and shared with him, I think that we need to remove those types of anomalies, and so that the positions are clear insofar as that's concerned, because one could only be Prime Minister with the support of the majority of elected individuals. Equally, it follows that if you lose that support, well, how are you going to continue to be Prime Minister? And that is the irony of the situation. And it elevates one seat over all the others in such a way that did not make sense. It really became more of a dictatorship than a democracy, because you had 8 seats in St. Kitts and Nevis. The 3 in Nevis plus 5 in St. Kitts sitting outside the government. And they had 3 seats. 7, 8, and I think number 3. Those are the 3 seats that formed the government. That makes no sense, none whatsoever. And so I think that those are things that we need to clarify and create a document now, because 41 years has taught us a lot, you know, and to clarify and make clear. So these are some of the things I think need to be looked at, but I certainly would favor a top-to-bottom review, and to change the things that need a change, and to look afresh and even see whether or not new provisions are necessary.
Okay. Now, while both administrations seems to be working well together, there are some concerns that have been expressed by some divisions regarding a few matters at the federal level. The first being the fact that the new CBI Board of Governors was recently put in place, and the concern is that no division was invited to sit on that board. I don't know if that is true or false. But according to them, with fair share being an issue of discontent for some time now, they believe that inviting a few persons from Nevis to sit on that board would have been a step in the right direction to show some seriousness in resolving this matter. Your thoughts?
Well, it is not true that we were not invited. The truth is that the Prime Minister has in fact invited the NIA to appoint a member. So not 2 or 3, but a single member to that board. I do believe that institutions such as those should have a fairer representation, but he did invite us to appoint a member. We have not yet done so. We have been very deliberate in thinking about it as a cabinet to determine who we would send to function on that board. But so the invitation was extended, as I said, for a single member. It is important, I feel, as we go forward, that we continue to agitate for a fair share. And I've always said that fair share is not just about money. Fair share is also about opportunity. Fair share is also about ensuring that our people get the necessary exposure. Fair share, for example, when I was foreign minister, I insisted that some divisions had to be a part of the foreign ministry. And I've said so repeatedly that I was in shock and awe that when I became Minister of Foreign Affairs of this country in 2015, we became independent in 1983. So that is 32 years after we became independent, I became foreign minister, to find that the country had never had an ambassador from Nevis. And I went about it. We had Dr. Everson Hall, we had Madam Sherry Truss.
Yes.
And then we had people like Elsa Wilkin and Bristol, Eustace Theo Wallace, and a couple of others. And I said, no, it was important for us, no. And I wasn't talking about putting people there just because they were from Nevis. I'm talking about putting competent, knowledgeable, in many cases, multilingual people. Right? This to me was critically important. And we have to in Nevis be constantly vigilant, because there are some on St. Kitts who still have an attitude that Nevis and Nevisians must stay in the back of the bus. Right? There's still some with that attitude. And we constantly have to insist that we are permitted and given the opportunity to play our part in the country. So when I say fair share, I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about money, I'm talking about opportunity, I'm talking about being a part of the national development. We are already the smallest population in the hemisphere, the smallest country in the hemisphere. We can't afford, and there's no way that we're able to build a country with just 2/3 of the population at work.
True.
We have to involve everyone, and there's a lot of talent, as you know, in Nevis. Just as I said, we have talent right now on display on St. Peter's Road in St. Kitts. A lot of talent.
What has the response been like when you put these matters forward? Because you have a very strong argument and very fair argument as well. What has
I think Dr. Drew has been receptive so far. We have not had, in my opinion, the necessary urgency about some of these matters that I would like to see. But then I have been patient, and the reason I've been patient is because I understand that this government, this federal government, has really had a difficult time of it, with crime and with a lot of the other issues that they face, the citizenship by investment program, the declines that they've seen, etc. But this is something that he has committed to and something that I have committed to, and I'm optimistic that we will get it done. We have been doing better, Mr. Scarborough, in terms of the relationship. We have been doing better in terms of even the benefits that have flowed to Nevis. Just last night I made it known publicly that the federal government has created a budget for independence and have allocated some of that budget to the island of Nevis for our independence celebration. That has never happened in the history of our country. So things like those one must look to, and they are an indication that we are slowly moving in the right direction. But I emphasize slowly, and for many the pace is too slow.
True.
So it is something that we need to revisit, and revisit with some level of urgency to ensure that we bring some clarity and some certainty, so that the people of Nevis are not subjected to who happens to be in the Prime Minister's chair. And when a pittance comes over the narrows from our CBI program to something that we are entitled to, you hear murmurs of, we give them this, and we're giving away, think it's money and this kind of thing. I think that we as a people need to get beyond that. And the Nevisian people must understand that whatever Nevis gets, especially from that citizenship by investment program, it is not as if we are being done any favors. I want to emphasize that, because I heard this stupid argument being made by some in Nevis that, we're depending on St. Kitts too much and we're begging. What do you mean you're dependent? If you and your brother have a business and that business is making money, and you get some of that money, and your brother gets some, in fact your brother is getting the lion's share, you should as a Nevisian be joining in and demanding your share.
True.
Not this notion that, there's something to be embarrassed about because you're getting the pittance that you're getting. And so I just want our people to be clear, because there's a lot of noise that's being made out there sometimes in the political arena, and I don't quite understand the noise, because it's not as if one is begging, please do me a favor. One is saying we are entitled.
Exactly.
And that is a fundamentally different thing.
True. Now, speaking of the CBI, the question of the CBI revenue sharing continues to be a talking point for many within the Nevisian society, and indeed St. Kitts as well. We would have heard of both the former Prime Minister and the current Prime Minister that they were seeking professional help with the financial sharing from the IMF in particular. It is my understanding that a report was presented some time ago, but according to Prime Minister Drew, something wasn't right with that report, so it had to be sent back to those who worked on it. Are you in a position to shed any further?
No, I don't have any information. I have not seen any report. The Prime Minister has said to me that a report will be ready shortly. But I have not seen it, and that is why I'm saying there's an element of urgency now, because you can only tell people that for so long. After a while, people want to see what exactly is happening. And so we, as I said, have been very patient on Nevis. I have been very circumspect. I have raised my concerns privately, and I've said to the Prime Minister, listen, you and I need to get this across the line. It is something that has been talked about and promised. In fact, the Charleston Accord, that was the pact between PAM, PLP and CCM, that was agenda item number one. That was a critical agenda item. And of course, once we got into office, then Prime Minister Harris reneged on that. And that was a matter of great concern, which ultimately contributed to the collapse of Team Unity. Labour has never signed any pact with CCM. I understand that. But I think the morality of the situation, and I dare say the legality of the situation, demands that the people of Nevis be given a fair share of the resources of the country. It cannot be right, for example, Mr. Scarborough. I don't know if the people of Nevis understand sometimes the intricacies. A lot of people now are ordering items online. It's the biggest craze now. Everybody ordering their shoes, their outfit, their makeup, their whatever online. I wonder if the people of Nevis understand that items are taxed in terms of customs and VAT at their point of entry. So if a Amerijet lands in St. Kitts full of product, half of that product might be going to Nevis. But the customs and everything is levied where it lands. So the companies are paying one check to the federal government for their customs duties, for their whatever the case may be. And one may legitimately ask the question, well, why is that not then Nevis portion being sent over to Nevis? So the issue of fair share is a wide conversation. It is a wide conversation that needs to be had. There are companies operating on the island of Nevis. We have something called the VAT, the value added tax. It's a single filing system. So a company, say, like Flow or Digicel, which operates on both islands, can choose to file on St. Kitts. And because it's a single filing system, then they file in St. Kitts for the entire federation. So no matter how much money is spent on Nevis that attracts VAT with the telecoms companies, the NIA doesn't collect 1 penny.
Wow.
So these are some of the things that need to be looked at and ironed out, rationalized. So it's not even for me just about citizenship by investment. That's an important factor, because over the years, of course, billions of dollars have poured into Bastille from CBI. But it is also about these other matters that really need to be looked at, regularized, so that the NIA can have the revenue that is really being generated in Nevis. I have said more than once that I am not asking for a single penny of St. Kitts taxpayer money. I will reiterate it tonight, that I am not asking for 1 penny of taxpayer money generated on the island of St. Kitts. If they generate $10 billion, it is you, keep your money. I am agitating for money that ought properly to come to the island of Nevis. And if you're collecting money for me, then hand it over.
True.
It can't be right that a company operating in Nevis and in St. Kitts is pooling its profits and paying corporate tax on those profits to the federal government, when a significant part of that profit is generated on the island of Nevis and the NIA gets nothing. So I want our people to understand that when we talk about fair share, we're talking across the board opportunity, a fair tax system that really gives the NIA, because every year I look at it and I say, but the economy in Nevis is growing. Mr. Scarborough, even if Stevie Wonder, who the last time I checked was blind, was to come here, he would see for himself that this economy has been moving.
True.
You just need to look at what people are driving, the homes that people are building, the infrastructural development. You realize, you go to the restaurants, you see the families out eating. The economy is growing. People in Nevis are confident. The quality of life is getting better.
Yes.
And when I look at that and I start to say, well, how is it that we have not seen the concomitant rise in government revenue. Because all that heightened activity in the economy should translate into more revenue into the government. And mark you, revenue has been increasing. But it has been increasing incrementally. Whereas I think when we look at the economy, we seem to see, when I look at the job reports from the Social Security, for example, it is quite astonishing the number of jobs that are available on the island of Nevis. In fact, the Social Security statistics tell us that we have more jobs than workers.
Wow.
By as many as 300 to 400 gap. So what is happening is some workers are filling those jobs because we have workers working 2 and 3 jobs. That's what's happening on Nevis. So you ought to see a corresponding significant uptick in government revenue.
Sure.
But the government revenue is leaking out because of these mechanisms that are in place, right? All of these companies, for example, that through which people order goods, they know what good is going to Cherry Garden, what good is going to Craddock Road, just as they know what good is going to Sandy Point and what is going to Old Road, because they know who the person is. So Miss Mary in Cherry Garden order a TV that comes in via courier. The courier company knows that's Miss Mary TV, and Miss Mary got to pay the customs and everything to the courier company. So why then can't we segregate that and a check is cut to customs in Nevis, to the NIA at the regular interval? These are some of the things that we just need to deal with decisively. And we, the people of Nevis, and I as the representative of the people of Nevis, I want to make it very clear that I am not coming as some mendicant. I'm not coming cap in hand. I am coming and saying that this is what is fair and right. Let the people of Nevis and the NIA benefit from the policies and the growth that we've been seeing on the island of Nevis. You cannot continue a situation where you say that St. Kitts has a surplus and all that. When you look inside the numbers, you got Nevis money in there. You have CBI money in there that you have not shared adequately. Because I will tell you, when you look at the amount of money, you know the former Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, keeps banging on about Nevis get 500 million. And I always laugh because some of his parrots up here start to say the same thing. And I laugh because I said, but if Nevis get 500 million, how come nobody has ever asked about the over 5 billion that St. Kitts kept?
True.
So it's almost as if people are looking at the drop that you get here. They're not looking at the ocean that is over here. And I challenge the people out there who might be listening. Compare what we have done with the 500 million to what he did with the 5 billion. Because nobody in Nevis and no area in Nevis is without water.
True.
No area in Nevis is without electricity. Every area in Nevis has adequate roads. Our main thoroughfares are done and done properly. We have a water taxi facility in Nevis, not in St. Kitts. We have CCTV rollout all over Nevis with fiber, not in St. Kitts. So when you ask the question, because we were investing in water, we were investing in electricity, we were investing in roads, investing in water taxi, investing in a brand new police station at Newcastle. That's what we were doing with the 500 million. But you had 5 billion. It's billion with a B, you know, Mr. Scarborough?
I know.
Billion with a B. Even the second pier in St. Kitts was built with a loan. So it begs the question, okay, what happened to the 5 billion, what you did with it? Because the development that one would expect, the taking care, I hear Dr. Judem now talking about they need a hospital, they borrow money now to get the Skelec, because Skelec needs to be stabilized. Nevis has gone past that in terms of our investment, incremental as we did. It's not 1, not 2, but 3 brand new Wärtsilä engines we bought up at Nevlec.
Yep.
So I said to our people that we need not swallow every talking point. And whenever the question comes as if it's a begrudging thing that, oh, we give you 500 million, people need to then respond and say, all right, we give 500 million over a period of, say, 8 years. How much you get over the same period? You get 5 billion. What you do with it? What you do with it? You honestly, and the people out there who are listening honestly, tell me, what project could you point to in St. Kitts that has significantly transformed St. Kitts, and by extension St. Kitts and Nevis, that reflects that kind of money? The average man out there, the average man in Jessops right now, the average man in Henley Park can't even fathom how much money is $5 billion.
It's a lot of money.
Right? And you have nothing to show for it. And yet people on Nevis who live and see and breathe and use and benefit from what we have done with the money that we have got. Right? I tell people, during COVID, 2 years the country shut down. Every civil servant on this island was paid in full and on time.
True.
Places like St. Lucia, they get in IOU. They get in some of the money now, and an IOU are going to pay you the rest later. Not one person in this island was laid off, and everybody received their money on time. Well, how people think that was done?
Good question.
How would they think it was done?
Let me ask you something, because I remember former Premier Joseph Parry and Premier Amway as well, late Premier Amway, had similar problems with the collection of taxes, corporate taxes. They've been fighting for it for years now. You have a similar problem. Why is it so difficult for us to get that done? I know it's a federal thing, but...
Well, it's difficult, Mr. Scarborough, because if you are getting the money, you really are asking St. Kitts to give up something.
I know.
That's really what is happening. So if St. Kitts is getting as corporate taxes 10 million, for sake of argument, and 2 of that should properly go to Nevis, it means that St. Kitts next year is only going to get 8. So it really requires maturity. It requires leadership, and that is what I have said to Prime Minister Drew. Let us sit as mature people and work this out, because it will lead to greater harmony among our people, among the 2 islands, among the federal government and the local government in Nevis. When we can point to it and say it's a fair situation. But if you're collecting all this customs and thing on goods coming in and keeping it, if you're collecting all the corporate tax and keeping it, if you're collecting all the single filing VAT and keeping it, and the Nevis economy that is generating considerable amounts of business is not then, the government in Nevis is not then being able to benefit from it, then it will always lead to rancor and difficulty.
Sure.
So a lot of people are consumed about CBI, and CBI is important. But I am looking at a formula that deals with this in the round. And I know that there's some out there who listen will say, well, the Constitution does say something about that, because the Constitution talks about an 80-20 split. But the constitutional formula has never been applied. So my view is, as we go back to constitutional reform, that is something that we must now look at to determine, well, all right, you have this thing here, you've never done it, you've never applied it. Do you start applying it now, or do you come with some different formula? Sure. Right? That really is the issue that we need to confront.
How hopeful are you that you'll see some action towards that at some point before the...
Well, one thing I will promise the people of Nevis, and I believe they have trusted me over the course of my career in politics, because I have never sought to mislead the people of Nevis. And one thing I'll promise them is that I shall keep pressing this issue. I shall keep pressing it in our meetings in private. I shall keep speaking to it, because I believe that it is time that this issue be resolved once and for all, and that the people of St. Kitts can then tell legitimately. Do you know, Mr. Scarborough, that we're not even able to measure Nevis's GDP?
Why is that?
Well, you can't measure it because you don't have the clear numbers and the clear data. So much of our data is wrapped up in St. Kitts.
Yes.
Even sometimes to ask, well, how many passengers landing at RLB that are headed to Nevis? You can't get that data. You know how we'd get data? We'd go to the hotels and ask them. And you know the hotels won't capture everybody. Because if somebody comes and staying by you, the hotel doesn't capture that. If they come and they stay in a private villa, the hotel doesn't capture that.
True.
So it is these kinds of things. So it is difficult to measure. So when people say, well, how many visitors has Nevis had? You can give a good estimate, but these are things where in other countries and islands you have it down to the T. You can say, well, 17,127. We can say more than 15,000 or more than 20,000, but it is very difficult. The same thing when it comes to taxes and all of that, because, as I said, there's so much leakage out of Nevis that you have a real difficulty in getting a full understanding of what the Nevis economy is doing and generating. So what we tend to get are national statistics on GDP, but very difficult to get your local statistics on it.
And let's hope that we get some of that clear up sooner rather than later, especially with the relationship working so nicely at this time. Honorable, I want to move now to the issue of crime.
Yeah. You need to speak into the microphone, yeah. Yes.
I want to speak now to the issue of crime, Honorable, because that has once again risen its ugly head here in our federation. And the usual outcry is being heard coming from many within our society. But this time there seems to be a greater effort being made by both the NIA and the federal government to act more inclusively and decisively to bring this nightmare under control. What are your impressions of the efforts thus far?
Well, the jury is out. I think it is very early to give an opinion. I like the fact that the Prime Minister has decided that he is going to take this bull by the horn, that he is going to step up in a significant way. I believe part of what people were complaining about is that there appeared to have been a vacuum. And I would have made a speech, as you know, and after I made that national address, I did say that the matter is now over to the Prime Minister. And I'm not saying that my speech is what galvanized him, but certainly the speech that I made was early in the week, and by that Friday, he convened the first symposium. I attended that symposium because I think it was important symbolically for the leader of the opposition to be there. And I recognize that in attendance also was the leader of the People's Action Movement. She was there with a team as well. And then at a later point, I think a chap called Stephen Hector spoke up and said he was there for the NRP. So we had representation from all the political parties except the PLP at that first engagement. And I think the Prime Minister gave a speech there, which I regret that I believe it ought to have been played over and over and over, because I think it was an excellent speech. It struck all the right tones. And I'm happy to now see that he, in his capacity as the leader of the country and in his capacity as the Minister of National Security, is really stepped up in a significant way. So the stakeholders are engaged. I think people are fed up. These criminals need to understand that they have no friends anywhere, because they really ought not to exist in a society that is seeking to be based in itself on justice and decency and progress. And so, as the society galvanizes, the criminals are going to find themselves increasingly isolated. And that, I think, is what needs to happen until they see that there's no value in that. We are in a country which is showing tremendous promise. A country where the economy is growing. As I said, in Nevis, we have more jobs than people, than workers. We need, therefore, for our young people especially, because they're the ones who have, sadly, I should not say they're the ones, a small segment of them have been the ones to engage in a lot of this activity. We really need them now to put their minds, and they have tremendous, I have spoken to some of these youngsters who have decided that they want to be criminals or involved in the underworld. And let me tell you, the fellas out there with PhDs ain't as half as bright as some of these youngsters. Some of them, they may not have 10 and 12 subjects, but let me tell you, they are shrewd. They could do jobs and businesses and succeed at it. They understand the street. They understand the dynamics. Some of them have excellent people skills. And so it's just a question of them making the decision to turn the corner and do what is right.
Sure.
And understand, as I said elsewhere, that success is not something that comes overnight unless you win the lotto. It does not come overnight. Success is something that requires a plan, and it requires you to work to that plan. And you'll have setbacks at times, but you get up and you start again and you work towards your plan. And you set a plan where you say, okay, this time, this is what I want to be, here's where I want to be that time. Not expecting that you're going to have everything today.
Sure.
You see a man who's 50, 60 years old driving a nice BMW or a nice Mercedes or whatever, and you who are 20, you say you want that. But that's not the way life works.
Sure.
You can aspire to it, but if you must aspire to it, which is good, then you must also have a plan to work towards it, rather than expecting that everything is going to happen immediately. And so it's this, what I call Instagram culture, has to happen at once. And that I think we need to get away from. So I think the jury is still out, but I believe we're on a right path. I look at the crowds at these consultations, I look at who's represented, and I said it's a good cross-section of people, and it tells me that the society is fed up, that our people are fed up. And when the people get fed up, that is when the criminals have no safe harbor.
Sure. Now, I understand from the Prime Minister that a crime secretariat is being put in place. Do you know what's the role and the purpose of this?
That is still being fleshed out as I understand it, but I think they wanted to put what they call citizen security, some entity that really will be charged with that, I suspect, as a subset of the Ministry of National Security. But that is still being fleshed out, so I'll wait to see what the Prime Minister proposes in that regard.
Okay. Now, the gangs are well known to the high ranks of the police because they were paid to keep the peace just a couple of years ago. So the police high command would have an idea as to who they are. My question to you, therefore, is twofold. Should we go back to paying these gang members to keep the peace, or should we move to eradicate the gangs from within our society?
I think they both are connected, because what you call paying for the peace was really intended to eradicate the gangs. If that program had been implemented in the way that it had been presented to the federal cabinet, I believe that we would have broken the back of the gangs. The sad thing is, that program, the way it was presented, and I supported it 100%. I'm not going to sit down here and be a hypocrite. I supported the peace program 100%. But the peace program that had been presented to the cabinet, which I supported, was a program, I think it was referred to as an alternative lifestyle pathway. And the idea was that to have youngsters out there, for example, if you had a conviction at 18 years old, for whatever, that stayed on your record for the rest of your life. You are now a man of 28, 30, married, children. You're trying to get a job at, say, a Four Seasons. They want to see a police record. You can't get a clean record. You want to get a visa to travel to the United States or elsewhere. They want to see a police record. You can't get a clean record. You want to go to the bank and get a loan for something. Oh, you're a criminal. So the alternative lifestyle pathway that I supported was designed to give those people a second chance. To say to them that we understand that the society and the system is set up in a way that once you made a mistake early in life, you're done with. And so if you're done with, you tell yourself, well, I can't get a loan, I can't get a work nowhere, I can't get a visa to go nowhere, I might as well do. Everybody say I'm a criminal, so I might as well be a criminal. So you wanted to break that cycle. And so this idea was to do various things. The young people, for example, if you're a youngster of 25, 26, you've been in prison, you spend 2-3 years in prison. No bank is going to lend you money to start a business. True. None of them going to take a chance on you. So again, the alternative lifestyle program was designed to provide money, capital, to individuals like these who say, well, I want to start a car wash, I want to start a little farming business, I want to do whatever, a little car rental. Here's some money, because nobody is going to lend you. So the government stepped in and said, but the problem that you ended up having with the program, Mr. Scarborough, is that the Prime Minister put the program in the hands of his brother, and I believe that they at some point say, boy, we could use this program for politics. We could use this program for politics. And so the program lost its way. It was no longer about trying to change lives. It became a situation of paying fellows some money to create an artificial peace. And you realize that it was artificial because the moment that the government changed and these fellows were out, the murders and the violence exploded again.
Sure.
One of the things that I repeatedly asked, for example, is what were the preconditions? So you're giving a man some money every week. Did you require and say, okay, fellas, y'all say you're gang members, Government is providing you with some support, financial support, loans, money for your business, etc., providing some employment, bring in the guns. There was never a quid pro quo. There was never a requirement of the program that if I going to do this for you, you must do this for me.
True.
So the result of that is fellas not had to do nothing.
Just collect money.
Just collect, and then at the end of the day, they say, well, okay, fellas, let me hold it down because it's in our interest to hold on the fighting. But I still got my gun home.
True.
I was never asked to turn in the gun. So when that framework was dismantled by the new government, the fellas just pick up the guns again. So to me, and I said so in the national address that I gave, that I support some type of mechanism, whether you want to call it peace, alternative lifestyle, or whatever you want to call it, if implemented the right way. So I know that they have this Elevate program now. I don't know to what extent that program has been thought through. I don't know the details of that program. I'm not in the cabinet, of course. But if Elevate can achieve what the alternative lifestyle pathway was intended to achieve, with some benchmarks, with some measurables, you can't, for example, have a man and you tell the man for the rest of his life, you're going to give him a weekly wage. You have to have something where after a while you graduate people from that.
Sure.
So you tell a fellow, well, I'm going to give you a weekly wage to sustain, but while you're doing that, you got to go down to AVIC and go to trade school and learn how to do some plumbing. And you understand?
Yes.
And learn how to do something of that nature. You have to have some benchmarks. You have to have, and this thing of just freeness. That's why when I tell you, you hear people say, no, oh, money been a flow under Timothy. Of course, because money was being given away. There was no sustainable plan. There was no sense of how do you do something that is we can sustain over time. You were just doling out cash because you were flush with $5 billion worth of cash. So you doled it out, and then at the end of the day, what did we get? People are saying that the peace program was successful. I tell them no. In retrospect, the question of whether the peace program was successful, if it were, we wouldn't have the murders that we're having now.
Sure.
Because it would have meant that these youngsters, their mindset and their lifestyle would have changed. But all that happened is when the money stopped, then fellas pick up the gun again. And so I feel that we now need a program, and not everybody's going to subscribe to it. They got some fellas out there just bad.
Sure.
But for those who genuinely want out of that life and want an alternative, I feel that a program designed for them, which says I'm going to give you a hand up, not a handout, because the alternative lifestyle program was supposed to be a hand up.
Sure.
It really became a hand out. We don't want a handout because handouts make people dependent. You want a hand up where you elevate people, encourage people, and ultimately you get to a point where people are not concerned about no gang now. Because we're making money, we have a wife, we have a girlfriend, we have a house, we have a little car we live in. And we are not kept hostage by the fact that we made a mistake when we were 18 or 19.
Sure. Sure. Folks, you're listening to Government at Work. My guest this evening is Premier the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley. We shall take a short break, and when we come back, we shall continue with our discussions here on Government at Work.
So right, St. Thomas is right, St. James is put together and build your land. Right, St. George's and St. Paul's together with St. John's. This land is enough for all to share. No reason to leave and go nowhere. Foreigners can come here from America and England. There is something mighty sweet about my land. And if the foreigners who live here can insist that it's here they're from, then I swear I'll never leave my native land. One people, one country.
Honorable, I want to focus your attention in this second half of the program on Nevis affairs. Because despite the naysayers, Nevis is being built brick by brick and at a rapid pace as well. I want to start with the recent hosting of the 50th anniversary of Culturama and your assessment of the impact it had on the Nevis economy. Shed some light on that for
The
us.
impact was phenomenal, Mr. Scarborough. I think that by any measure, the impact has been phenomenal. Again, we do not have yet an economic impact report, but we have some indicators. For example, we saw movement within the 2 weeks of Culturama at the Van Samry Airport, the Oily Water Taxi Facility, and the Charlestown Port of just over 38,000 people.
Wow.
Now, we understand some of those will be counted twice because they're going back and forth. But nevertheless, we had 38,000 crossings and or landings between the three ports. We saw the iConnect bringing, again, during that period, having well over 1,000 vehicles moving between St. Kitts and Nevis. 2 weeks I'm talking about. We don't have the numbers for the Seabridge, but I'm pretty certain the Seabridge would have moved a similar number. We don't have the numbers for people who might have come on a private boat. So we understand that the numbers are actually even larger than what I've given. Those 38,000 people, they stayed somewhere, they ate somewhere, they drank somewhere, they rented a car. In fact, I saw Hertz from Sinkers bring up hundreds, scores of cars. They had them over at Wally.
Yes.
And so everything in Nevis was sold out. On the Sunday before, I think the Monday was Juve morning, on the Sunday, I went up to Best Buy in Gingerland. Said I needed to get something to cook. And when I went up there, I had to smile. It looked like when Hurricane was coming. The shelves were bare. The shelves were bare in Best Buy. And I looked at those things and I smiled. We went down to the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. We went down to the Pinnies facility that we've created down there. And you recognize that it was full and overflowing. I spoke to a lady, I hope she's not going to be upset with me, but a restaurateur. And she tell me, she said, Mr. Brantley, if anybody said they did not make money, tell them I said a lie. Tell them I said a lie, because he said I make money during that period of time. One of the proprietors of one of the restaurants at the beach, Pinnis Beach, said to me that his entire staff needs a break because they were just working 7 days trying to keep up with the demand. You look at the food fair, the largest food fair I've ever seen.
Sure.
In my time here on this earth was there at the Malcolm Gishard Park during this Culturama. You look at the events, you look at Juve Morning, the impact, I believe, is undeniable. Car rentals, villas, guest houses, the hotels, the restaurants, you name it. The supermarkets, our people came in numbers. And of course, those numbers were heightened tremendously by the number of Nevisians that came home. And again, I said to my colleagues all the time, do not be shy to point out to the people of Nevis when we have successes, because the others are out there trying to even turn successes into failures. Sure. I see Donald Trump lose a debate the other night, and he's telling everybody he won the debate. That reminds me of the NRP here. That is how they behave. So the reality is that we ought not to be shy. And when we came up with the idea to have the homecoming celebration, we said, man, let us twin 50. And man, I was overwhelmed at the response of our people. And I want to thank all of those who came from abroad. One lady, I don't know if she's listening, she's from Nevis, but she lives in Georgia. She said she had surgery just a few days before, but she said, listen, once I can walk, I'm coming home. And people came in their numbers, man. I saw people here that I had not seen in years, people who came and tell me they had not been to Nevis in 10, 15 years. Family reunions that were happening here. Some families were 100, 200 strong, came home to reunite and reconnect. And I thought it was a beautiful thing. So for me, a resounding success.
I had the Minister of Culture on this program immediately after the festival was over to do a recap of the festival. And I said to him then, jokingly, that the marketing for Culturama 51 and beyond has been made easy, because with the amount of returning nationals and visitors that came for the 50th anniversary celebration, they have said that they intend to come back for the 51st. So the marketing of the festival has been given extra boost. Your thoughts?
No, I agree with you. And I think that people know, because, you see, part of the disconnect and the misinformation is that a lot of people overseas thought that everybody here dead hungry, you know?
I would have heard that sentiment.
A lot of people overseas, listening to the foolish rhetoric coming from some, thought that everybody in Nevis are dead hungry. So when they come to Nevis, many of them who have not been here for a decade, they can't believe what they're seeing.
I know. I experienced that myself.
I encountered a fellow down at Pinnis. He tell me, boy, he said, this look like a place, he said, in Orlando or someplace where he lives. And the reality is that people were seeing and said, my goodness. I spoke to a friend of mine. He said he has been living in the US VI for 42 years. And he said he is at the complex and at the village. He said VI don't have a facility to host carnival. He said when carnival come, they knock up a parking lot.
True.
So we here in Nevis who are constantly berating and saying Nevis is the worst, Nevis is the most terrible place. When people came home and they suffered themselves, they said, what you in this eye attack? And I believe as a result of that, Mr. Scarber, you're right, because so many people know. You know how many people know are saying they want to look for the family land here, they want to build a house here, they want to, because they see the pride. This Nevis is not what they left.
No.
They see it. And so those who are peddling the negativity have a much harder task. Much harder task. Because they were hoping that during Culture Armor water would go off. They were hoping electricity would go off. They were hoping that this would happen and that would happen. And the system held strong. And the people enjoyed themselves.
Yes, they did. Honorable, we are seeing a number of international banks increasing here on the island of Nevis. What impact do you see this having on the local economy, and how is it impacting our banking system?
Well, remember, the international banking sector operates separately to the domestic banking sector.
Sure.
So, for example, international banks are not allowed to have local customers. So they're not interfering in any way, shape or form with the local banking sector.
Okay.
Their clientele is entirely an external clientele. The numbers have grown. I think the impact will be employment, and employment at the higher end, because of course these institutions pay more. I think the options are becoming greater for Nevisians abroad to come back home to fill some of these positions that are being created. I feel the overall financial services industry is growing, and that these banks will now be able to service that industry in a significant way. And so I think it's a positive, and it has been a deliberate action on our part. We changed the law in 2014, I recall, to encourage international banking, because when we introduced that law originally in 1996, we introduced the international banking. Only one bank was ever licensed, and was the Bank of Nevis International, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Bank of Nevis. And we now have quite a few that have been registered. We are boosting our regulatory regime. We are hiring additional people. That is the plan in the coming year. And we are hopeful that we can settle down. And the interest is still there. We have interest being shown from a lot of banks and institutions as far as the United Arab Emirates, Dubai. They're all wanting to come in. So we are saying that we don't want, of course, for it to get to 100 banks, because that becomes unwieldy. But we feel that we can add another one or two comfortably and regulate them properly and allow them to service the sector and to grow. One of the deficiencies of the Nevis financial services sector over the years was banking. That people could form a company here, they could set up a trust here, but they had to go to Cayman or Bahamas or someplace else for their banking. So if we can close the loop, it means that we can capture a lot of that business right here. And so I am encouraged. I had a good meeting just this morning with the people at Sovereign Bank. They are the newest licensed bank on the island. And they are very, very, very enthusiastic about what they're seeing. and I'm enthusiastic. They have taken some space there at the Belmont, I think it's called, right there at Pinnis, and I am definitely looking forward to more of that and those kinds of developments for the island of Nevis.
Sounds good. Now, we have not been hearing much about the offshore financial sector lately, but from all reports, it is going steadily. Could you give us an idea as to where we are with regards to that effort at this time?
It's definitely growing steadily, and year-over-year growth. I think this year we're probably looking at anywhere from 10 to 15% growth in that sector. Last year we had a considerable spike because we had some movement of entities from the British Virgin Islands that transitioned here. We have stepped up our marketing. In fact, we have done a road trip to Panama. Another one is happening to Argentina in the next week or two. And we are really pushing the idea that this island is now, as I said in a speech I gave recently, I said it is now our time. We have been at this. In fact, this year the sector celebrates 40 years. So we've been at this for the past 40 years. And I think it's time now that we break out and really become a world-class financial services center. We have been hovering sort of in the second tier for a while. It is now that we move up and step up. So I am very optimistic about what I'm seeing. I think we have an excellent team of regulators, people who understand the task and are hardworking. And we also have an excellent team of private sector participants, so people who are in the private sector who are involved. And we see companies like Trident, which used to be Morningstar Holdings, still hiring, still expanding. In fact, we have been trying to encourage them to headquarter their efforts here in Nevis, because they're a global phenomenon now. So we're having some good conversations, and I'm optimistic. Development doesn't happen overnight. I want our people to understand that it takes time. But I think that, again, Stevie Wonder would come and open the eye wide and say he can see all that's happening on this island.
True. Now, the Nevis Investment Promotion Agency, NEPA, is charged with the responsibility of advertising and selling Nevis to the outside world, especially when it comes to attracting large financial investment to the island. How satisfied are you with the efforts thus far, and if you could outline for us some of the positive achievements to date?
I think NEPA, remember we spent some resources on revamping NEPA, setting up a one-stop shop portal. The idea really was that we did a whole new facelift. Since then, I think NEPA has performed creditably. We've had some successes, for example, in terms of the call centers that have come. Those have come largely through the efforts of NEPA, and those are now generating, the one in Brownhill is over 100, and the other one that is here in town, Telemed, that is the last I heard was up to about 40. So we're talking about 160, 170 people employed directly through those efforts. NEPA has been involved in some of these road trips that we've had, and really has been an agency that acts as a focal point for bringing in people. We have also added there now the film commissioner, because as you know, we are also keen to promote film as another part of what we're trying to do. So I would say that I have been pleased thus far and cautiously optimistic that we can do more insofar as NEPA is concerned, but we're on the right path. I think we're on the right track, and with the right approach and the continued effort, I do believe that we are going to get the level of investment that we want. Investment has been happening. You look, I tell people, you look at Pinnis Beach, and you have 8 bars and restaurants down there. Each one represents an investment, and in some of them, new investment, because Turtle Time is new in terms of what they built up there. Nevis Peak Brewery is new. Chili's, or whatever I think it's called, is new. Zanzi is new. So all of those are new, and then others have expanded what they're offering. So, truth be told, we have been seeing investment and investors coming in. Telemed Partners in Charlestown, up in Brownhill, you have Radius call center. All of this represents investment. We have not had, of course, a major hotel or something like that yet, but I'm hopeful I will have news on that in short order. But the truth is that we've had a number of small investments that have been happening and have been happening consistently. So I have been pleased with what has been happening, and I just feel that, as I keep saying, Nevis has been making incremental growth, but I am looking for explosive growth. So I want us to jump from the 3 and 4%. I want us to get to 12 and 15%. I think that is going to put us at the next level of development, and so that's what we're looking for. And I had some very promising meetings when I was away recently that I'm hopeful in time can lead again to that kind of growth and that kind of development.
There are a number of capital projects on the cards that could further strengthen the Nevis economy. The pending airport upgrades and the development of geothermal are two such projects that readily comes to mind. Could you give us an idea as to where we are with those two projects in particular?
So let me start with the geothermal project. We don't have any new information on that because we've been waiting for a number of things. And not everything that's happening there is within the control of the NIA. So, for example, we have been interfacing with the federal government, and they in turn have been interfacing with the CDB. The CDB has approved $17 million US. As we know, we're trying to get some more money from them. So I have been in touch with the Prime Minister on that, and we are hopeful that the city will make a decision on that soon. Separate and apart from that, but at the same time, we have been finalizing the bid documents to do a second round of tendering, because remember the first round failed for a variety of reasons. So last report I got from Nevis, who was the lead on the project for us, they indicated that those documents had been finished and they were now getting ready to send them out to invite bids now. Remember, we're trying to get bids to do production wells, 5, 3 production and 2 reinjection wells, so 5 wells total. And those wells are averaging anywhere from $5 to $6 million US each. So it's significant. So the big thing that we've had is that the 17 million is not enough to cover the drilling for the 5 wells. And so a lot of the drillers were a bit apprehensive. They say, if we mobilize to do 5 wells and you only have $17 million, so where the rest of the money is going to come from? So we had what is referred to as a funding gap that we've been trying to fill. We've had a number of meetings. The Prime Minister traveled to the UAE, and following upon that, some people came from the UAE and came here. We met with them. They came to Nevis. They visited. The Saudis have come. I know that the UAE government is quite interested as well. So we have a number of irons in the fire. And as I've said to him, the first one that bears fruit is what we're going to go with. I don't have the benefit of waiting to hear what other people are going to say. Whoever comes to the table with the resources, let us go and make a deal happen and get this thing out of the ground and start to benefit the people of Nevis and the people of St. Kitts. So that is where we are on geothermal. In relation to the airport project, I had a meeting just this morning with the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, who, as you know, is leading on that project. We're making steady progress. I think the designs and the EIA are at a point now where we are submitting to planning the necessary designs, and we anticipate that we will have a fulsome presentation to the Cabinet early in October, and then a large town hall meeting where we hope to unveil the EIA and all of that. So we expect, Mr. Scarborough, I don't like to make predictions, but we expect that we should be able to start that project this year. So even though we are now in the final furlong of the year, we would like to start that project this year. We had a bit of a hold-up negotiating the last bit of land that is critical, a land that takes us towards Nisbet Plantation, but I believe that we now have a way forward, so we're going to deal with that. And I would want to thank the landowner, who is Mr. Lescott, for his patience with us, and we are hopeful that we can get over the line. Once we get access to that land, we start the works right away going in that direction, because the majority of the extension will be in that direction. The other lands that we are acquiring have largely to do with parking and things of that nature, right? So we are really pushing. We've also approached the government of Taiwan, and they are looking very seriously at the project as well to see how they can assist. So we're anticipating that we will definitely be able to start that project this year.
Any idea when you may have the next consultation?
Well, we're October. That is the intention, because the technical people are here on the ground right now. Paris Consulting, I think that's the last report I got from Mr. Jeffers this morning, and they are finalizing the design. I believe that design is going to planning this week, and then the EIA, which is going to be critical, that will have to be published, and once that is published, we expect to have some meetings sometime in October.
Great. Now, there's still another 4 months to go before we close out to 2024, but how would you rate our economic state of affairs at this time in comparison to the same time last year?
Well, I can't really say. I like to be accurate. The last report I had, we do half yearly reports. So finance will have given me a report as of June. And the report as of June is that we were ahead of where we were in June 2023. But of course, we've had now in September, and I would not have got a further report in terms of the overall position. But based on what we saw in June, we were doing well. And compared to last year, we were well ahead of that. We were seeing vast improvements in tourism, for example, and the collection of revenue from tourism, improvements in our VAT collection. Customs was down marginally, but within the budgeted expectations, and financial services again was up significantly. So we were the key areas that we depend on. We were seeing good movement in those directions.
Okay, great. Now, I have said on many occasions that Nevis will rebound from this COVID-19 pandemic much stronger than before. 2025 is just around the corner, and if all goes well and we don't experience any unforeseen setbacks from hurricanes or major market crash like 2008, what are your expectations in terms of further growth for Nevis going into 2025 and beyond?
Well, if we can get this airport project off the ground, then it means that by the end of 2025 we should have a brand new airport facility. That will be a game changer for us. If we can get this geothermal project off the ground, we won't have geothermal by the end of next year, but certainly the activity that will generate, the construction and other activity, will be significant going into the new year. The hospital project is another project that we are going to dedicate maximum effort to, because I've said to the team I want that project finished as quickly as possible, and if we can finish it next year, then that would be great. So we have some projects that we have to undertake, that we have to complete. I anticipate that if we can get particularly that airport, in terms of economic things that will move the economic meter, airport and geothermal will move the economic meter in a significant way for us. Hospital will not move the economic meter, but it's important to have it.
Yes.
But in terms of the economy, I feel that geothermal and that airport are going to be critical. Of course, the other things, home construction and all that, will continue. I'm also hopeful that 2025 will be our breakout year for some new developments on the island, private sector developments. We have had a lot of conversations with individuals over the years. We've had various projects that had been proposed for a long time. Some of those projects are now showing some momentum. So we're optimistic that we could get something done at Pinnis, for example, at 400 acres. We're optimistic that this long-awaited Windham project can happen. They've shifted that project to Paradise. And we're optimistic that we can get a project done in the Indian Castle area. And we've been having some very good meetings in relation to that project. And I know you're a golfer, so I should let you know that one of the projects we're considering.
Say it again.
You're a golfer. So one of the projects we're anticipating will involve a golf course. So we are very optimistic. I'm always reluctant to come to the public with any grand announcement. So we'll wait and allow those conversations to concretize, but the interest out there in Nevis is very high at this point. And you said about rebounding from COVID. I would tell you that all of our numbers are up compared to 2019, which was our last year before COVID. Our numbers are up significantly. So from 2022 our recovery started into 2023 and now 2024. So I'm really looking forward. I will get a further report perhaps in November as to where we are, and then we go into the December budget discussions.
Okay. Are there any plans to further develop the athletic stadium there in Long Point, especially in light of the fact that track and field athletics is on the rise here in Nevis, and next year I think is going to be the 5th anniversary for that facility?
It has not been a priority for the government because we have said that the facility as it now stands works quite fine for what it is used for and what it's intended to be used for. I travel quite a bit and I see facilities all around the world in developed countries which are in the very same state as this facility. Bleachers and, not intended to be for international sporting event, so to speak, but rather to give our local people a place to practice, exercise, get themselves ready, give our local athletes an environment that they can practice and a proper pitch for them to run on. So it has really not been a huge priority for us. But if the funds were to be found, we would, of course, try to do a stadium over there, just so that we could have a complete package, so to speak. But again, there's so many demands. I mean, for example, we now had young Mr. Nisbet, 15 years old, was the first ever Olympian swimmer. And there's a large clamor now, and I agree with it, to build a pool. Right? St. Kitts doesn't have one, Nevis doesn't have one. In fact, the youngsters have been trying out using the pool at Montpellier, the hotel pool, or they're swimming in the sea. So already I'm getting some local persons here, expats who live here, who are showing an interest, and we're told that the cost of a pool will be about $3 million US. And so we have already found a piece of land, and we are looking now to see. So things like that. The problem, Mr. Scarborough, and I think that some people looking on think that governance is just you go in and you do things. No. You need to find the resources financially to do them. And then you have to prioritize. So, for example, you have these youngsters now who are swimming and doing quite well. Should we invest in them with a pool? Or should we build a stadium at the Mondo track? Because sometimes you can't do both at the same time, because you just don't have the resources. The cricketers are also saying, when you're going to fix up ETW? The basketballers are saying, when you're going to give us a covered facility for basketball? The netballers are saying, the tennis players are saying. Everybody is making their demands and saying that this needs to be done. And I understand that. And while they're making their demands for that, the people are making their demands for roads. What happened to my road? So you have all of these things that are happening at the same time. You still have to find money to pay your public servants. You still have to find money to pay your debt and pay your interest, etc. You got to find money to run your hospital, keep your healthcare sector going, your schools and your education sector going. So I just want our people to understand sometimes that it's not just snapping your finger and getting something done. You have the ideas, and if I could wave a magic wand, all the development that we need would happen. But we need to prioritize sometimes, and sometimes people query, well, why you do that and not this? Why you do that road over there and leave my road? I understand that. But equally, if I did your road, somebody over there say, why you do his road and leave mine?
Sure.
So we understand that, but I just want our people to appreciate that governance is difficult. I've been in this chair for a while, and I'm telling you, it is difficult because every day you have to make choices.
Sure.
And you pray about it, and you hope that God guides you, and you hope that the choices and the decisions work. Some of them have worked spectacularly, like Culture Armor 50, like the homecoming, like the water taxi facility. And I imagine that a water taxi facility moved this year, I think it was in the region of 17,000 people in the 2 weeks of Culture Armor. And you reflect, when you go over there and you see Islander Water Sports, you see Blue Wave, you see all of these companies that have developed. And you realize that Nevis built this. Sure. This government built that.
Sure.
We have, and I say it without fear of contradiction, we have revolutionized travel between St. Kitts and Nevis.
Sure.
CCM-led Nevis Island Administration.
Very sure.
Revolutionized travel between St. Kitts and Nevis. So a lot of times when people talk about, oh, this is not happening, you say, listen, how many governments could say that? This wasn't done in St. Kitts, the bigger sister. This was done right here in Nevis, pioneered in Nevis. And the water taxi business is 100% division owned. That was done by us, and we do that.
True.
And so a lot of times I think that we just need to realize that you make decisions, Mr. Scarborough. Some of them may not work out as well as you would like. Others have been spectacular successes, and that water taxi is one of those spectacular successes.
True. Finally, Honorable, we're running out of time, but could you give us an update on our water situation, especially as it pertains to the desalination plant and the drilling of proposed wells? Where are we with regards to those?
So I'm sad to say that on my way here, I thought to myself, I wonder if you can ask me this question, because I really should have spoken to Minister Brand. I don't have an update. And I don't, as I said, I like to give
Oh, you have
accurate
him as my
information.
guest this
Okay,
week.
so he's the best man to ask. The desal plant, I was told, should be able to come online this year. So I'm hopeful. And then the last report we got, which was about maybe a month ago, was that the drilling that was being done for Newater, that the drillers had run into some problems with the drill rig, and they were waiting for parts to be flown in and all that. I have not had an update since then.
Okay.
So I will leave that to Minister Brand to answer, because I think we like in this government to give our people accurate information.
Sure. Well, Honorable, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. I know you're a very, very busy person, but I want to thank you very much. And I want to give you the final opportunity to speak to the members of the public.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you. You know that I have pledged that whenever I can and whenever you invite me, that I will come. And I believe that we have had some good conversations over the years here on this program. So I invite our people to tune in, to listen, and to avail themselves of every opportunity to get information, accurate information about what is going on the island. Others may try to spin, but I can assure you that we will give you accurate information about what is going on, the good and the not so good, because this is our Nevis. And if we benefit together, and if we suffer together. So let us continue to build and grow this beautiful island of ours together. Thank you for all that you're doing, and I hope that this broadcast is seen by as many people as possible when it airs on NTV, and that it was heard by as many people as possible right here on Vaughan Radio.
It is also aired on YouTube. Thank you very much, Honorable. Folks, we have come to the end of another edition of our Government at Work program. Join us again next week when we shall do it all over again. Do enjoy the rest of the evening's programming. Then have a pleasant night's rest. Good night.